Okay. Hey, everybody. We are so happy to have you joining us and hearing our conversation. I'm Dr. Maureen O'Keefe. We are here at Purple Mountain Physical Therapy, a pelvic health physical therapy clinic in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And tonight, I'm super happy to have these two ladies here. They are from My Doula GR. They are two doulas here in Grand Rapids, and they serve our community during labor and delivery and for birth preparation and postpartum doula care. So why don't you two introduce yourselves and we'll dive right in.
Yeah, I'm Emily. I am a DONA certified birth doula, also a certified birth photographer and placenta encapsulator. So I've been doing this. Lindsay and I actually met in 2019 at our doula training, and it's been real. Yeah. I live in Belmont with my husband and our two kids, and I am starting midwifery school at the end of this month. Yay.
Yay.
I'm Lindsay Shigemoto. I am also a DONA certified birth doula and postpartum doula. I also do birth photography, and I live in Cascade, Michigan, which is just south of Emily a little bit. And I live there with my husband and two kiddos and our dog Wrenchy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So I suppose Emily just said something that people I often find don't fully understand. What is the difference between a midwife and a doula? Because these two women are both doulas, and we're going to be talking about the support that a doula can give to labor and delivery and pregnancy. But like in brief, what would the difference be between those two?
Sure. Yeah. A midwife is focused on medical care. They are focused on the clinical side of supporting you through your pregnancy. A doula is non-clinical. So we focus on informational support, educational support, hands-on practical support throughout pregnancy and labor, and pretty much just making sure your emotional well-being is being cared for, and you're getting all of your questions answered and focused less on the clinical side of things.
Yeah. And I think a big part of being a doula, especially in hospitals, is that we need to help our clients advocate for themselves. And that comes in the form of giving them as much education about birth and labor as we possibly can, and making sure that they are empowered to go ahead and talk to their provider, and they know what to say, and they don't feel afraid to ask questions or ask for more time if they need help making a decision, and just amplifying their voices and making sure that they're heard. I think I heard her say that she needs this, or I think I heard you say this, right? So that helps, that goes a long way in especially the hospital setting, where you have a lot of, different providers or nurses coming in and out that you maybe haven't had any contact with before.
That's true. And midwives are licensed medical providers, just like your OB-GYN. So the midwife is the one who's going to birth the baby. That is your provider if your midwife is your person that you have chosen. Whereas a doula is not a licensed medical provider. They're like another specialist in labor and delivery tips that are there to support your kind of mind, body, and spirit according to what you have vocalized to be your birth plan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So here's my next question. If somebody were pregnant and they were wondering, well, I don't even know, why would I need a doula? What would a doula do for me? What does doula support look like during the pregnancy? And then we'll get to the labor and delivery and postpartum. But if I'm pregnant, how could you help me out?
Sure. Well, during pregnancy, it's really important to make sure that everybody on your birth team is cued in to what you want for your birth. So maybe you go to your provider and they say something that just doesn't sound right to you and you have a question about it, then you can always call us or text us and ask us, hey, what did this mean? I'm a little uncomfortable with this. And we can help you form a list of questions or, things that you're concerned about that you can take back to your provider and talk over with them. So that's a big part of pregnancy support. We also help you with different positions, help getting your mind in the right mental state to go through this giant event that's going to be just like one of the most amazing things in your life, the most memorable things. So a lot goes into preparing for labor and birth. So you want to have somebody on your team who is an expert in the birth part of it, who can help you get the answers you need in pregnancy. That's why it's better to hire us, as soon as you know you want to do a lot.
Yeah. And we meet with each of our clients usually 2, sometimes 3 times, depending on if our initial consultation is in person or via Zoom. And during those prenatal visits, we're going to be talking over a lot of different things, common interventions, your options when those interventions are presented to you. What can you do in early labor? How do you recognize early labor? How can we support you in achieving your goals? Whatever your goals are, that's what we're going to be working on.
Right. Not our goals.
Not our goals, no. And we can help throughout pregnancy to formulate that, your birth preferences. Some people like preferences more so than a birth plan, but it's the same thing. It's learning about your options and what goes into making those decisions for those options. And like Lindsay said, maybe you have a question about something that your provider said, we can help explain it in non-medical terms.
Yeah.
So oftentimes we have clients who just didn't understand what their provider was saying. It was said to them in very medical terms. And sometimes it's just having someone else explain it to you, or give you questions to ask, or help you kind of work through making those decisions. Or we've had clients who have messaged us with things that they were concerned about, but I don't know if I should call my provider. We can kind of be a sounding board for that and say, yeah, you should call your provider right now.
Or maybe that can wait until the next time you see them.
Yeah. Depending on what's going on.
The question is,
I think that's crucial. When you're pregnant, a bunch of things come up and you're wondering, they're like having a best friend who knows all things about pregnancy.
Yeah.
And, if you have a medical question, you should be going to your medical provider.
Yeah.
They are not that person. You
Right.
don't call them if you're bleeding.
No.
That isn't
Right.
the time
No.
to call them. But you may be wondering like, oh, should I bring my own pillow to the hospital? They can answer those questions. Or have you been to Butterworth lately? And is Butterworth going to allow my mom and my partner to be at the hospital if the doula is there? That would be 3 people. So maybe we could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
The hospitals, they've been at birth just this week.
Yeah.
What are the hospital policies regarding COVID? This is March of 2022, and Michigan right now is on the downslope. Things are looking better for us, everybody. So what's going on in the hospital that might be different than what you saw in 2019?
Yeah. Well, for one, I know everybody's always curious. The number one question people have is about masks. Everybody is required to wear masks when the medical professionals, nurses, OBs, residents, anyone is in the room with you. If nobody is in the room with you, you can take your mask off. We have had people ask, okay, am I going to have to push with a mask on? They will say, can you please pull your mask up? Pretty much up until pushing, but if you're pushing a baby out, they're not going to say anything to you if you take your mask off. So that's kind of been the biggest question I've had.
Yeah, and walking the halls, you'll have to wear a mask
walking
as
the halls. Yep.
in any of the common areas, but in your room, you have a little bit more freedom with that.
Now, I find everybody has figured out the masks by now, I hope. I find it's easier to work out and breathe in the KN95 masks. So if it were me,
Bring
I would
your
be
own
buying
mask.
those masks that
Yeah.
look like the bee. I wouldn't be wearing the medical
Yes,
masks,
no.
that's a
knowing.
great point. Yeah,
Yeah.
bring your own mask if you can, one that you know that you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing in the hospitals is, like you were saying, visitor restrictions. So there was a small chunk of time when we were not allowed into the hospital. But thankfully in Grand Rapids, we've been lucky to be permitted to attend births with our clients pretty much throughout most of the pandemic.
Mhm.
Right now, each hospital kind of has different policies, and it can be hard to find those policies online. We've spent a lot of time calling the charge nurse in labor and delivery. Currently, you can have 2 support people plus a certified birth doula. They are checking certifications. Some hospitals, we have had to send our certifications ahead of time. Some we just show it at the door. So it really depends on which hospital you're going to for that.
But a birth doula does not count against your 2 people, a certified birth doula.
That's good news.
Yeah.
So you're saying every hospital you've been in lately
Mhm.
will allow you to have your partner, maybe your mom, so you could have 2 people plus you.
Yeah.
Because they are both certified birth doulas.
Mhm.
That would be a question to ask a doula that you might be interested in, because some people are still maybe in training or they haven't completed the certification, right?
Correct.
So what is the certification? What did that involve for you two?
Sure.
Yeah. We started out at a 4-day workshop that was run by Doula International, which is Doulas of North America. And we learned during that time just very in depth about the birth process and how to support normal physiological birth, and then also inductions, birth with an epidural, cesarean birth.
Mhm.
Okay, hang on. Those are hot topics. Inductions,
Mhm.
birth with an epidural,
Mhm.
cesarean birth. They've had training specific to that, and specifically how to help support you through those stages.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did the workshop, that's where we met. And we were required to write an essay. And we were required to do a ton of reading. I always joke that I have a master's degree in adult education and training, and I did more work for my birth doula certification than I did for my undergrad or my master's degree. I just felt like I mean, it probably because I was so much more passionate about it, but it definitely was no joke. It was just so much training and
breastfeeding education.
yes, lactation
support. And we had to come up with a list of resources in our area. So different lactation consultants, pelvic floor physical therapists, yoga instructors, all different things like that, so that we can refer our clients to other professionals who we know and we've spoken with, and we know kind of their philosophy and the way that they practice. And
that's one of the really incredible things when you have a doula on your side, because the birth community here in West Michigan is really integrated. We know each other, and if you have a doula on your side or a pelvic PT, we can suggest, oh, I know this person is really good at XYZ. And that is one of the benefits you get when you hire them. They can point you in the direction of resources throughout your pregnancy. Now, would you say, being doulas in your 2 to 3 prenatal visits, and you're helping someone flush out a birth plan, are you also recommending that they do a birth preparation class?
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, so can you explain the difference about a birth preparation class and what that might bring to them and why they would need that? I knew that was their answer. I recommend the same, but I would like to hear what you think.
Sure. Well, a birth preparation class allows you usually to bring your partner with you so that you guys can both be getting the same information and getting more in-depth information. So doula support is awesome and great, but our time with you is shorter. So we have the 2 prenatals that we do with you, and that's a great information session, but really a birth class is all encompassing. And I would say a birth class that isn't tied to the hospital is probably the best. Because if you're taking a hospital birth class, it's more about how to be a good patient and more about hospital policies and all of that. Well, that is good information to know. You really want the holistic birth class that's teaching you what your body's going to go through, what your mind's going to go through, how to prepare for this giant event. I mean, it's like you would not run a marathon without training. At least I hope not. I did try to run a half marathon without training. It was a really bad idea. So I highly, highly recommend a birth class. And there are tons of different birth classes in Grand Rapids, and you could just kind of shop around for the birth class that would work best with your personality.
Yeah. I feel that learning some of the physiological processes that are going on within your body to be very empowering.
Yeah.
To know that your body is working with itself in so many different ways and working with your baby to have a successful and safe birth. And so learning about some of that during pregnancy can really just give you a sense of,
I own this birth.
yeah, this is my body, I'm doing this. And even if you're going into labor planning to have an epidural or other medicated pain relief, a more non-medicalized birth class is really going to help, because you're not going to get that epidural right away. Epidurals are not always 100% effective.
Right.
So having some of those in your back pocket for situations like that is going to be very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So a birth preparation class is really going to give you many tips and tools for what to expect through all the stages of labor.
Mm-hmm.
And it will help you become informed as to what the signs and symptoms are of each stage and what some of your options would be. Whereas with the doula, they're coming during your prenatal visits, helping you develop your birth plan and really supporting you to think through how you would like your labor and delivery and your postpartum recovery to look like. One of the things that some patients tell me is, I don't feel like I need to have a birth plan because my first one went out the window, and therefore, there's no sense in having a birth plan. And I can tell you from my experience as a pelvic physical therapist working with people for many years, 25 years now, and my own personal experience with my pregnancies, your birth plan can go out the window and you can still experience a wonderful labor and delivery and birth experience. It's totally different. Sometimes you have to process through some of the disappointment or some of the like what just happened in there. But it helps you if you do have a birth plan, because in creating the birth plan, you are developing an awareness of all of your options. And in my case, it was really helpful for me to know that I was high risk. It was helpful for me to know that I had a bunch of high risk bad news things that could have happened, and what were my options and what was it going to look like if those things happened. And so I kind of had a birth plan, and then I had a contingency plan that if this happens. So you generally recommend that people do formulate a birth plan because what?
Just as you said,
Yeah.
it helps you learn your options. We spend, which we can go into this a little bit later as well, we spend a good amount of time with the non-birthing parent as well, so partners, and helping them to learn how to support their partner through birth with that birth plan or birth preferences is huge. And also, if you start making your birth plan early in pregnancy, or when you start working with a doula, you can then take that to your provider and talk through that and open up that conversation early, so that when you're in labor and something comes up, it's not the first time that you're asking a question of your provider. Or if you're with a larger practice and your provider is not there, you can talk with the provider who's there and say, I talked over this with my provider. What's different now? What's changed that this is no longer feasible?
Right. And we can kind of think of some of those questions that could come up, and things that you could say, or ways you could talk to your provider, because sometimes in the heat of the moment, it's like, I didn't think about this. I don't know what to say. And then hindsight is always 2020. You think of it later and you're like, I should have said that. But if you kind of have practiced talking to your provider, that gives you kind of a better sense of who your provider is and your working relationship with your provider. So it just improves relationships. And it also gives you an idea of if your provider isn't on board with your birth plan or your ideal birth. You don't want to find out in labor and delivery that your provider is not supportive of you. They were simply tolerant of you. You want to make sure that you're with the right provider. So that kind of gives you clues as to if you maybe need to seek out a different provider for your pregnancy.
What I'm seeing is that people are having providers that are in large groups. And so the day of the labor and delivery, they don't consistently have their provider delivering their baby.
Right.
How do you suggest people navigate that reality? And what are ways in which they can advocate for themselves the day of or beforehand, considering that you're going to get whatever provider is on call?
I think that goes in with what Emily said, in that you can be like, okay, well, when I saw my provider, they were okay with this. What's changed? That's a really good way to put it.
Because there is a chance that something has changed.
Yeah.
Complications arise, things do need to change. We need to adjust things, but doctors are people. They have different preferences themselves. They have different things that they're comfortable with. And so asking them what's changed, what's different, that this isn't going to work anymore, is a good way to open up that conversation without feeling aggressive.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of our clients don't want to be a burden. They don't want to be trouble. They have trouble speaking up. There's something called the fawn response when you are
traumatized or
not really traumatized, but speaking with someone who you view as in a position of power.
White coat syndrome.
Yes, white coat syndrome, where you just kind of, okay,
whatever you say.
And that's where we will really come in and say, okay, what questions do you have about this? One thing that we do with most of our clients is work through the BRAIN acronym. So what that stands for is benefits, risks, alternatives, intuition, nothing or not now. And we'll go through with our clients and their providers all of those things. What are the benefits of this intervention? What are we hoping to achieve by doing this intervention? What are the risks? What are the alternatives? And then when you discuss the alternatives, you're going to discuss the benefits, risks, and alternatives to that as well. And then what is your intuition telling you? So your gut, we're evidence-based, but we are firm believers in your gut as well.
You know your body.
You know your body. You know when something's going on. And then what if we do nothing? Or what if we do nothing right now?
Yeah,
can we wait 30 minutes?
30
Let's
minutes.
talk about it. So helping our clients get answers to all those questions and make an informed decision that is right for them is really what we're focused on when we're helping get those questions answered.
Yeah. I think a lot of times there is a rush and an urgency given to you when you're in birth that you need to make a decision now. And sometimes that is the case. And sometimes those providers, they're amazing. I love all birth providers because I know that they are really helping usher new people into the world. So that can be the reality of the circumstance. But there are also other circumstances where there's an urgency placed on you or a sense of you better make a decision quickly and you actually have more time. And I've talked with many patients over the years who have told me that it was their doula who helped them get more time and took the boiling pot off of the stove, so to speak, by kind of calming down everything in the room. And do you find you serve that role sometimes?
So much so. Yeah. I mean, that's like the main thing. I feel like I do.
Yeah. Asking, repeating what your provider has said can also help with some clarity. So say this is a very, very dramatic situation, but so say your provider comes in and says, we need to do a cesarean right now or your baby will die. We need to do a cesarean right now or my baby is going to die. well, your baby could die. My baby could die.
Mhm.
Well, I guess we have some time. So that's obviously a very extreme situation, but that's kind of how it
Unfolds.
unfolds. Yeah.
Mhm.
So just asking, reiterate yourself, because like we said, providers, they're wonderful, they're very skilled, but they're
Mhm.
people too. So when they start to feel rushed or anxious, sometimes that can come out in their conversations with their patients, and it can seem more urgent than it is. And believe me, if it's urgent, you will know it's urgent.
There will be a lot of people in the
no,
room.
okay, yeah, we can give you some time to think about it.
Right.
And we have been in those situations where we've had to explain to our clients what's going on, what's happening, why is this happening, why are all these people in the room. So in those situations where it is a true emergency, something needs to happen right now,
Mhm.
we're there for those situations as well.
Yeah.
And those circumstances, they may be able to be the calm in
Mhm.
the storm for you,
Yes.
because the medical providers are laser focused on their medical
Yes, they
task
are.
at hand. They are
Right.
doing everything they possibly can to support you. And sometimes that does not include a lot of verbal communication or hand holding
Right.
or letting you
Yeah.
know, or eye contact with you. They are getting everything taken care of. And if you have a doula who can just explain to you, okay, they're getting that ready for you. It's going to happen now pretty soon. Yeah, okay, you're going to want to stand here.
Mhm.
Mhm.
All of that brings an ease and a calm and an awareness to the circumstance that you wouldn't otherwise have. Sometimes you're like, oh my God, what's going on? And that's, your heart is going crazy because you're so worried. But you too are there to bring calm to that.
Right.
We've had several clients tell us that there usually comes a moment in labor when you panic internally, whether we see it from the outside, but a lot of our clients talk to us about that moment when they started to panic, and they say, you didn't look scared, so I wasn't scared.
Yeah.
Or
Aw.
my midwife didn't look scared, so I wasn't scared. And so just having someone that they know about birth,
Mhm.
they know how birth unfolds and pans out. And if they're not scared, they're not nervous, then I don't need to be nervous.
Right.
Yeah,
So
that is
yeah.
really helpful. You want a calm provider.
yeah, you do.
That is helpful. Okay. Can you two share any tips you have for navigating birth in West Michigan? There's some amazing hospitals here. There's lots of choices with home birth and midwives in a hospital, or any of it. So what would your tips be? Because they're kind of in the know for all the choices and the providers.
Yeah.
What do you think sets people up for success?
I think the number one thing is when you're choosing your provider and you're looking outwardly in your community to find out like who's the best provider, you're getting advice from people. Pay attention to what the doulas in the Facebook groups or whatever are not saying. So doulas will fall over themselves to recommend a provider. But if a provider comes up and you notice no doulas have recommended that provider, that's kind of a red flag. So it's just kind of a back of my mind. Okay, that's something I need to think about and consider, that the people in the know in this community that have been at all of these births are saying by not saying, I think with the online stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So there's a great Facebook group called Pregnant in West Michigan.
Mhm.
And you can join that group
Mhm.
and you can search through the group and find what they're
Yeah.
talking about.
You can join our group too.
Yeah.
Oh, you have a group?
We do.
I didn't know they have a group.
It's a small one.
Yeah.
It's just the My Doula GR community is the name of it.
Okay.
Mhm.
When did you start that?
When we started our podcast.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
okay.
very small. We haven't done much with it. But
Okay.
it's a fun group of other
Yeah.
like-minded individuals.
And we will answer. If you have a
yeah.
question, we will answer.
Yeah. And I think everyone wants to recommend their OB. If they
Oh,
had a
yes,
good
yeah.
OB or midwife, if they felt like they had a good experience, they want everybody to see their OB. And the thing is, the right OB for one person is not the right person for the next
Sure.
person, just as the right doula for one person is not the right doula for the next.
Yeah.
So really just asking on one of those groups, does anyone recommend an OB? It's kind of an open-ended question. You're going to get a whole bunch of people who are recommending their OBs, but why? What's important to you? Where does this provider deliver? Where do they practice? So we have an incredible children's hospital in Grand Rapids, which is attached to one of the maternity hospitals, and some of our more medically complex pregnancies, they want to make sure that they're at that hospital so that if their baby needs to go to the NICU is right there. They don't have to travel from one hospital to another.
Yeah.
Or if you're wanting a home birth, you're going to want to look for a home birth midwife. So, asking around about different midwives and meeting with different midwives and meeting with different OBs. It can be kind of difficult to get a meeting with an OB without signing up for their practice or like enrolling with their practice. But keep trying, because you should be able to ask questions and kind of get a feel for who you're going to be working with and who's going to be caring for you and monitoring your health and well-being.
Yeah.
So I recommend to my patients who are not planning to get pregnant anytime soon that they do establish a relationship with an OB-GYN, so that they start to get a sense of what that's like, because now you can have your pap smears done by your family doctor. So I have plenty of patients that are 21 years old and they just have their family doctor take care of that. But before you know it, you're going to be like 25, 26, 30 and maybe wanting to have children. And if you've never been to a provider who could deliver a baby, you don't have that experience. So you could go to an OB-GYN, see what that's like, and you might decide, oh, I really love this practice, or I hate this practice. I can never get an appointment I want.
Yeah.
Or when it comes time for you to have your baby, you might know that you want to birth with a midwife. And there are some OB-GYN practices here in West Michigan that have midwives. So you might start with that practice to begin with.
Yeah.
If that's something that you think might be on your radar.
Right. And also those practices fill up quickly. So thinking ahead is really the way to go.
Yeah, I just had a person who went to one of those practices and has had like an amazing experience, but she was originally told, well, we're going to have to put you on a wait list.
Yeah.
And she was surprised.
Yeah, it is surprising.
Yeah. So
You think you could just go anywhere, like anytime, and then oh
yeah,
there's a wait list. Okay.
Right. Okay, so let me go down my list. Can you comment on trends or common things that you might notice that your clients have experienced that have really been beneficial for them? And these would be things that maybe you would then say, okay, anyone listening, let's make sure you have these in place for yourself.
Yeah. We, as far as our support goes, something that most of our clients we do with them is called the Miles Circuit. And that is something that we go over in our prenatal visits. And it's a series of different positions that you hold for 30 to 40 minutes. And it kind of helps, well, it does help open up your pelvis and help baby descend into your pelvis a little bit more.
Makes a little bit more room.
Yeah, it makes a little bit more room. So that's something that we go over with all of our clients. And
I give that to my patients as well.
Yeah.
It's very helpful. One of them is just lying on your side.
Yeah.
So the baby can kind of fall into the hammock of the abdomen and descend. So if they're working with you, then you're going to be taking the time to explain them, these things to them the way I
help
do as
them
well.
physically help you get into the correct position, because it can be kind of confusing if you're like looking at a piece of paper and then you don't have anybody to guide you. It's kind of like going to work out at a gym and maybe you're lifting weights and you're ineffective at lifting weights. But if you have a personal trainer there to just make like minor, even in yoga, just make minor adjustments to you and help you be the most effective in those positions, that's really a good way to get set up for success.
Okay, so one tip was the Miles Circuit.
Circuit, yes. Spinning babies is another thing that there are some exercises and positions that we can help with throughout pregnancy that will help strengthen the round ligaments that hold your uterus to your body and help make more room in the pelvis for your baby.
Mhm.
And spinning babies is one of the great resources.
Yeah,
Yes.
resources that not a lot of people actually know about. I
Yeah.
know I didn't know about it until my first pregnancy. I hadn't heard of it at all until I went to, I think it was a physical therapist, and he was like, yeah, you should check out this website. It's really good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we can help, some of those positions that you can do throughout pregnancy are ones that your partner will need to help you with. And so during our prenatals, we help show them how to do that as well. So
Yeah, your partner can get in
yeah.
on the action.
Mhm.
Okay, and now on the counter side of those tips, are there any trends or common things that you see happening
Mhm.
that are detrimental and people should try to avoid these things? Or maybe if they had prepared differently,
Mhm.
those negatives wouldn't have happened.
Right. A lot of it's positioning, and it's being very aware of how you're relaxing. So if you're sitting on your couch constantly with your legs up or in a bucket seat or reclined, you're not helping your baby to get into the right position.
So the baby isn't going to be like, the baby needs to get on top of the cervix to descend down. So we don't want everything all collapsed. We need everything open.
Right. You know, it's maybe a mistake not to buy a $16 birth ball or yoga ball to have at home to use when you're watching TV or folding clothes. Just having the correct posture and making sure you're not getting into one of those cozy positions.
She's talking about these.
Yeah.
You know, these that you can sit on and you can bounce.
Yep. And it's also really good in postpartum because I found with my second baby, nothing helped him get to sleep until I just very gently bounced him while sitting on a birth ball.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah,
they're
they like the bounce.
yeah.
They like the little bounce.
Helpful in labor too.
Yes.
Sitting on a birth ball, you can roll your hips
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
just stay comfortable and move through your contractions and relax in between them.
That's the first thing I ask for as soon as I get into a room. I ask for a peanut ball and a birth ball. And the other thing that I was thinking about, oh yeah, Maureen's going to show us the peanut ball.
Here's the peanut
So
ball.
there's the peanut ball.
So why don't you explain how you use this with your
Giant
clients? Yeah, I have a big one. The big peanut.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
So what is the benefit of the peanut ball? We use it here in physical therapy with our pregnant people, but you're going to use it the day of.
Right. You want to keep your hips open. So we're going to get you in a position. If you choose to be on the bed, this is great. If you have an epidural and you can't do anything else or get into any other position, a peanut ball is always an option. And we can get your hips in a good position instead of just having you sit there in a position, like you were saying, where the baby's not coming down the cervix. So those are really great tools. And I find that here in Grand Rapids, most, if not all of the nurses are very well trained in how to use a peanut ball to help you. The other thing I was going to say is right when I get into the room, I noticed that a lot of people will try to gravitate towards the bed. So there's this thought that, okay, I'm pregnant, I'm in the hospital, ready to have my baby, I need to sit in the bed. That's probably like the worst place you can be. You want to be up and moving, getting that baby ready to come out. You want to be using a peanut ball, utilizing a birth ball, moving your hips, getting into positions other than just sitting in a bed. And those beds are not comfortable. So it's not great on your tailbone either.
It's not. I do like that they move in a bunch of different positions.
Sure, yeah.
Specifically for our clients who would choose epidural pain relief, we can get into so many different positions in those beds. And the peanut ball, I mean, Lindsay just helped a client who she was most comfortable just sitting on the peanut ball draped over the bed.
Yeah, of the back of the bed.
Back of the bed, yeah.
She didn't want to move.
Sometimes it really helps with the mile circuit with those sideline positions. We use peanut balls for that or pillows. Sometimes the little side table. Yeah, sometimes we'll use that. But a peanut ball is really helpful for that. Or even just if you're sitting in the bed, we'll have you cross one leg and put one leg over the ball just to keep that uneven pressure in your pelvis, which is going to help baby continue to move down.
Yep.
So what I'm hearing is same thing that I talk to my people about. walking, movement, hip circles, changing positions, that all helps you and your baby. You and your baby are a team. That baby needs to descend. If you get stagnant, that you have the chance that everything's going to slow down.
Yeah.
And that's why we go back to the birth preparation, not only a class, but working with them to have a birth plan, and you on your own throughout the 9 months, preparing your mind and developing tools for navigating through labor. Like Emily said, you're not going to get that epidural the minute you get into the hospital. So you potentially have many hours of laboring. And during that time, you need to know how techniques for breathing and coping to pace yourself through that, because we do want you to move. It's to your advantage to move. And you guys just called out about 10 different tips that you provide. I mean, where they're helping position you, even if you have an epidural. So let's talk about that. Sometimes I think my patients will say to me, because I do recommend people get a doula. My patients will say to me, well, I don't think I want to have a doula because I want an epidural. And I think they're thinking that if they have an epidural, then they don't qualify for a doula, and that's totally wrong. So I'm able to talk to them about, oh no, you can have a doula and have an epidural.
Absolutely.
Can you explain that?
Yeah.
Or what their choices are? Their choices are anything, no medication.
Right.
Yeah.
To something in between no medication and an epidural. We can come in and help you to speak up for yourself as far as how your epidural is going too. So if you're like, okay, I'm really feeling a lot of pain actually just on my left side. We can get the nurse involved and we can try to find different positions to make sure that the medication goes where it's supposed to go. Sometimes people will be in pain and they're thinking, well, I'm having a baby, so maybe I'm supposed to be in pain, and then they just don't say anything. With a doula, we're going to help you speak up for yourself. We can actually get you with a lighter epidural. We can help you get in a lot of different positions. Pretty much, I mean, I've seen people on their hands and knees with an epidural.
Yeah.
And you would have people on both sides spotting you. So,
yeah. And also going back to the fact that epidurals are not 100% effective. Epidurals fail. They are not as effective as you had anticipated. Sometimes you have a hot spot where you're feeling all the pain in one spot on your back, or it's working on one side and not the other. And so that can really catch you off guard. It can be really scary when you're going into your labor thinking, I'm going to have an epidural, I'm going to sit in bed, and I'm going to have my baby.
Right.
To have that all pulled out from underneath you. And so having some tools in your pocket, like I said, for coping through that. And then if you have a doula, your doula can help you not only with coping through the physical sensations of labor, but that emotional shift from I'm going to have an epidural to I am now doing this non-medicated. We can help with that as well. And helping your partner still be hands-on and supporting you when you're in bed with an epidural.
Yeah. Sometimes as a partner, you can feel really afraid that you don't know what you're doing, and you're seeing your loved one in pain, and it's a really scary thing for you, especially when you don't have anybody else in the room supporting you. So doula support partners too.
Yes, we do.
Now I think Bethany, you had a question. Would you mind asking your question?
Yeah, so I think we covered it mostly, and I think they can hear me. You guys went over a ton of things of how you can kind of advocate for the birther, and kind of reduce the trauma that might come from having a birth in a hospital. Is there any other or any more specific examples that you guys can give of different moments that you really made a difference for your client in that moment, that going a different direction could have been really bad for them, but because you were there or because you worked through this decision, it actually turned out a lot better? Anything like that?
Well, you can't avoid trauma. You can't guarantee that somebody's not going to have trauma, but you can certainly do everything in your power to try to lessen it or try to make sure that the birthing person has more control. So I heard a quote recently that was the opposite of trauma is power. And I really feel like that's true. So if you're making decisions all along the way with the help of your doula, the help of your birth partner, then you can feel confident that I chose this. I wasn't coerced into this. I wasn't forced into this. This was my decision. This next step was my decision because I had all the information I needed from my birth team. I know one primary example happened about a year ago. I had a client who was a very nice person and saw herself as a very nice person and was afraid to speak up for herself. I witnessed, unfortunately, some obstetric abuse from a resident, and she didn't realize that she could say no, that she could tell that person to get their hand out of her, that she could say, you're no longer permitted in my room. I don't trust you anymore. So once the provider had left the room, I had a conversation with her and I said, you know, you don't have to allow people in here who you don't feel comfortable with. And I helped her bring that up with the nurse, and the look of relief on her face once she told the nurse that she didn't want that person back in her room anymore was just like, I mean, it was heartbreaking. And it was also just like, it was amazing to see her take her power back. So I think that really reduced any trauma that happened with that provider.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, trauma happens when you feel out of control. So in those situations where a bunch of stuff's going on, you don't know what's happening, or maybe it feels like a bunch of stuff's going on to you, but really it's not a rush. How we help to reduce birth trauma is to help get all those questions answered. And, you know, we've had clients who have had days long inductions and everything in their birth plan went out the window. But we talked through all of those options, and it was an open, fluid conversation between our client, their provider. You know, we all just discussed it. And so there's a lot less trauma in those scenarios than if everything were to go out the window and you had no say in what was happening. You didn't have someone explaining what was happening.
You
or
didn't have
explaining your
anybody to be
options.
like, okay, time out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that from a lot of patients where they are, they may have experienced trauma or just things didn't go the way they want. What I hear a lot is they didn't even let me XYZ. They didn't even let me try to birth in this position. They didn't even let me try to push. They rushed me to a C-section. I hear that a lot. And I don't know what the medical circumstance was.
Right.
So it may have been a necessity at that time to move things along at the pace that they were moved along on. But what is happening that my patients are communicating to me is that they are not feeling like they were in control, and they feel very pushed. And if you were to have had a doula or somebody else there who might be able to say, well, do we have time to make a different decision, or what, to go through the list of those brain choices, you know, what are the benefits, what are the risks of what we're talking about here, so that we all can understand, like, oh yeah, I guess I do want to go with what they're pushing me to do. And then you feel that you chose it.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that you're informed and that you know what's happening to your body and your baby instead of being told.
Yeah. Okay.
There's also some support that we provide postpartum. So frequently things don't go exactly to plan, what in life does, but when things have to change, or there was something that happened that our client was uncomfortable with, or made them feel panicky or scared, we can talk about that and kind of, yeah, that was really scary. You know,
Validate.
we're not therapists, we're not mental health professionals, but we've talked quite a bit about this recently. Just pregnant and postpartum individuals, their concerns or fears or feelings are dismissed quite a bit. Oh, well, healthy mom, healthy baby, that's all that matters, right? you matter too.
Yeah.
Your experience matters. Of course, healthy mom, healthy baby is
Bare minimum.
the bare minimum. I mean, of course, that's the most important thing, but also it is the bare minimum. You deserve respect and informed consent and all of the things that go into that. So just having someone in that postpartum period where they can say, that was really hard. Yeah, that was really hard. Let's talk about it. And then if there needs to be some more mental health support, we have those resources as well. We have some incredible postpartum therapists out
Amazing.
there.
Yep.
Just incredible. And you don't have to suffer
Right.
in silence.
That's so true. And so if you hire a doula, generally you do get a follow-up postpartum visit, and these two do provide that for you. And we do know in research that you can help process through some of your trauma by being able to tell your story. Now, again, they are not mental health professionals. I am not a mental health professional, but we know the birth world well enough, and we know how to support and be active listening. I don't know if any of you have been with your girlfriends and you're trying to tell your story, and your girlfriend, they're going to up you because they got a better story. Oh, you won't believe what happened to me. And you don't get your own story heard. In the postpartum visit, part of the purpose of that visit is for somebody to talk through what went well, what would you have changed, and how are things going now?
Did that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then one of the things I think is unique about you two is that you're a team. So my doula GR is both of them. You don't get two people at your birth. That's not necessary. You would have one doula. But what's the advantage of if somebody were to go with you two? What's that advantage?
Well, you've met both of us, so you know who the backup doula is. And you know that with us, we're not going to like charge you by the hour, or if you get to a certain point in your labor, like, oh, we've hit 24 hours, now we're gonna charge you
that is
by
a
the
question
hour.
to ask.
That is a
because some
definite
doulas
question to ask.
Do charge after a certain amount of time.
Oh, yeah, you had a 37-hour one or something.
You had
Yeah.
36,
Well, that was you.
39. 39.
Yeah, there was one
39
day.
hours.
I was like, oh my Lord,
Yeah.
that was a long one.
It
Yeah.
was a long one.
With us, you know that you're going to get the option for a fresh doula. So if Emily is getting tired, she's going to talk to you about what you want. And if you want another pair of eyes to come in and relieve your doula, then we can absolutely do that.
Usually that's at the 24-hour mark.
Yep.
And then also Lindsay and I have very different birth experiences ourselves. I got into doula work after having some incredibly empowering birth experiences, and Lindsay got into doula work on the opposite end.
Yeah.
So we have different experiences and different viewpoints that we can bring into just this grand scope of support. So
yeah.
If you're interested in hearing their stories, they have a podcast and you can listen to it. It's called My Doula GR, right?
My
just
Doula's
my
podcast.
doula's podcast.
Oh, My Doula's podcast.
Yeah.
It's on Spotify. I've listened to so many. They just interviewed Saxony, who's a physical therapist who specializes in craniosacral, who's really good friends.
Yeah.
So there's lots of interesting stuff on their podcast as well. So what I heard you say is that if they were feeling tonight or another time, like they resonate with the two of you, because you guys are a team, you're always going to have a doula available.
Right.
So that's an important thing. And you provide different perspectives to help support the person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a very similar philosophy around birth and the way that we support our clients, but we have different backgrounds.
Combined, we've just seen so many things.
Yeah.
And we're not going to bring our own births or our own trauma into your birth because it is your birth. So I think that's really important to note that regardless of the experiences we had personally giving birth, those were just experiences, and we have processed that with our therapists, and
Yep.
we have
Dealt with it, so we're not
dealt with
putting
it.
that on you.
Yeah, and just our experiences, we can be like, oh, that happened to me. I have like a good scope of what's going on here. I just think that it's beautiful that we had a couple of different experiences. So
We're running out of time, but I have a question I want to highlight. You two offer birth photography.
mhm.
And I've seen some of your beautiful photos. They're amazing. You can follow them on Instagram and see some of that as well. So can you explain how the birth photography works? Well, just explain how it works if someone hires you.
Yeah. So we do a little bit of birth photography for all of our clients, usually 5 to 10 photos. And then if you want full documentation, that is added on. But when you get full documentation, that's what you get, full documentation of your birth. So when you get to a point where you feel like you want our support, hands-on, we will come to either your home or the hospital, wherever you are at that point, and we'll start documenting and taking pictures of the outside of the hospital on that day, your hospital room number. We frequently take pictures of the clock so that we can kind of figure out a timeline of how things happened. And I was not someone who ever thought that I would want birth photography. So I have been on that other side, like, why would I want a picture of that? But it's just beautiful to, see how you interacted with your partner.
Mhm.
There's a tenderness that
Yeah.
you see in birth that you don't in many other times in your life. So seeing how how much your partner cares for you in those moments.
And it's documented. There's proof.
Look at that. And things that you don't even remember from your birth, or maybe if we've had clients who have told us it's really helped me view my birth in a different light because things didn't go how they wanted, but they were able to focus on the beautiful moments and kind of reframe that in their mind.
And I think one of the questions is, how are you both a doula and simultaneously a photographer? A lot of times births are very long, especially if you have an induction. So we are able to do both at the same time.
Yeah.
So and I'm not going to be in your face with a camera.
No.
If you need my physical support or my emotional support, I'm not going to be taking pictures of those moments. But But there's a lot of time, even postpartum, where those are the moments that are like, some of those moments are amazing. Like your first picture is a family, little baby toes, and my favorite picture is the first picture when you pull that baby up to your chest and just your first look at each other. It's so beautiful. Yeah. So it's just such a passion to get those moments for you. Yeah.
And like Lindsay said, I think, and I think Maureen, you mentioned this too, there's this feeling that it's going to be just chaos all the time, the whole time you're in labor. And that's really not how it is most of the time. 99.9% of the time, there is quite a bit of downtime. And we're not always hands-on with our clients. We want to bring the partner in to the birth experience as much as they want to be. So there will be times when we will excuse ourselves. If you are in the tub and your partner is there giving you a massage or just being there to comfort you, we will excuse ourselves. And that's a great time for us to take some pictures and tell the story of how your baby came into the world.
I think that's a good point too. We're not there to take over for your partner. We're not there to push them out of the way. I know that's a lot of fear for a birth partner is that, why do I want this stranger here with us? But really we're there to support him or her supporting you. We are there to show them how to do hip squeezes or sacral pressure, or just step back and allow them to be together while things are going on in the room, and we're there to monitor the noise in the room, make sure that that you're safe and you guys are together and you're having this experience together. So
we're there to support them as well. So it's important for partners to get sleep as well, and to take a break or to get a sandwich, or if you're going to support your partner while they give birth, you need energy too. So
Yeah.
you can take a break knowing your partner is fully supported the whole time. They're not going to be alone.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good place to wrap it up. I so appreciate everyone who came. Holly, Amanda, Kelly. Bethany was putting links into the mydoulagr.com
Oh.
website, mydoulagr.com/podcast, and Instagram.com/mydoulagr. You can find them there and they would be happy to meet with you. They offer a meeting with any interested clients, and that is to see if they're a good fit for you. There's no pressure in those because they truly want to support you towards having the birth that's going to work best for you. And if you have any ideas for future talks or people that you would like me to bring in, we're going to be hosting these every month, and I have ideas and other people lined up. In April, we're going to have Jennifer Holshoe of West Michigan Midwifery come and speak. She is a midwife who does home births. So if you might be interested to learn more about how that works, she is an incredible resource here. And we are Purple Mountain Physical Therapy. We specialize in pelvic health. We're working with pregnant and postpartum people all the time. We also work with men, and we work with people that have nothing to do with pregnancy and postpartum who may simply just have some other problems related to pelvic organ prolapse or pelvic pain, potentially endometriosis related. So if you have any needs in the physical therapy realm, we are here in Grand Rapids to help you. And you can follow me at Instagram at Purple Mountain PT. I always post links to sign up for these talks. Anything you two want to say?
No, I don't think so.
I think we're good.
I hope all of your births
Yes.
go very well
Yes.
if you're pregnant right now.
Oh, well, thanks everybody. Have a wonderful night. Good luck with your births. Bye.